Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. The current session focuses on the factors involved in the implementation of competency-based language teaching programs. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you will be able to understand the factors that are involved in the implementation of CBLT. Well, my dear students, our batch 1986 provides a very useful review of certain factors, and he identifies 8 key features in this regard. Let us go through these one by one. The first factor, according to our batch, is a focus on successful functioning in society. So, the goal of CBLT is to enable the learners to perform or to participate or to live or to interact in a particular community or in a particular society. The goal is to enable the students to become autonomous individuals capable of coping with the demands of the outer world, especially in a particular social context. The second factor is a focus on life skills. So rather than teaching language in isolation, CBLT teaches language as a function of communication about concrete tasks, about real life tasks, that are to be performed or that the students are expected to come across in their real life. Students are taught just those language forms or those language skills that are required in those particular situations in which they live or in which they have to function. The third important factor is task or performance-centered orientation. What counts is what students can do as a result of the instruction. The emphasis is on overt behaviors rather than on the knowledge or the ability to talk about language and skills. So the knowledge of language itself, the ability to talk about language itself is not important. What is important is to perform tasks through language or to practically use language for various functions or to perform certain goals. The fourth important factor, my dear students, is of modularized instruction. Language learning is broken down into manageable and immediately meaningful chunks. In smaller pieces, in smaller chunks, language is presented to the learners. Objectives are broken into narrowly focused sub-objectives so that both teachers and the students can get a clear sense of progress. Now, this very much relates to the main orientation or the main focus of CBLT, where the focus is on the output or on the product, not on the input of language or not on the input of knowledge or not on the process of how that knowledge is taught, rather on what is it that at the end of the day is the output or what is it that can be performed by the student or by the learner. The fifth important factor is outcomes that are made explicit a priori. So outcomes are public knowledge, known and agreed upon by both learner and teacher. There is an explicit, clear-cut understanding on part of the learner as well as on part of the teacher that what is it that they expect to have as an outcome of this teaching. They are specified in terms of behavioral objectives so that students know exactly what behaviors are expected of them. Factor number 6 is continuous and ongoing assessment. Students are presented to determine what skills they lack and post-tested after instruction in that particular skill that they lack in. If they do not achieve the desired level of mastery, they continue to work on the same objectives for some more time and they are retested before they move on to some other skill for some other objective. As far as the seventh factor is concerned, it is demonstrated mastery of performance objectives. Rather than the traditional paper and pencil tests where the students would have sit-down exams, in CBLT, assessment is based on the ability to demonstrate pre-specified behaviors. Number 8th factor is individualized student-centered instruction. In content, level, and pace, objectives are defined in terms of individual needs. Every student has a separate context, a different set of needs, a different level of skills, etc. So keeping the contents, level, and the pace of the course according to each individual is one of the important factors of CBLT, and this is involved in its implementation as well. prior learning and achievement of the learners, of each learner actually, also has to be taken into account when curriculum is being designed. Well, there are certain advantages of a competencies approach from the learner's point of view. What are those advantages? I would talk about a few advantages. Number one is the competencies are specific and practical. They can be seen to relate to the learner's needs, requirements, and the interests of the learner in a particular situation. Number two, the learner can judge whether the competencies seem relevant or useful or not. Number three, the competencies will be taught and tested and are specified and are public. The learner knows them, the teacher knows them. Hence, the learner knows exactly what needs to be learned, and the teacher also, by the way, knows what needs to be taught. Number four, competencies can be mastered one at a time so that the learner can see what has been learned and what still remains to be learned later on. So one step at a time is taken, one particular kind of skill or one particular kind of behavior or one particular kind of piece of knowledge is taught at a time. And once that objective is achieved, the learner and the teacher move on to the next objective, or they move on to the next skill.